Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing great today. So we're going to make a Camo bespoke fountain pen today. So this should be pretty fun. So the Camo blanks are one of my newest blanks, actually the newest blank that I got in my lineup. I'm pretty happy with these. I've been, over the years, it's not like I've been working on it forever, daily, but I've given Camo a try a few times and I really just didn't like the way that they turned out for many reasons. So I just never went with those. Now, Camo blanks, when you're pouring liquids, are not going to be perfectly camo patterned. There's just no way to do it with liquid. But these are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. I don't have I had a little test. Where's my little test sample? I got a test sample of one turned down. They don't look as good. The outsides of vertical blanks don't necessarily look the greatest. Can't really see what's going on the inside there. So I got a couple that I turned down, some little sample guys. This one's like your, what do you call it? I can't think of I'm going to have trouble with words today, I think. Whatever, it's not polished fully. I can't think of the word. And then this one's polished up. So pretty good. I like I think it's a mixture of the colors in this. If the colors were slightly different, if they weren't really, good colors, I don't know that they'd work out as well. That's probably one of the issues that I've had in the past. But the other issue that I had was typically I would cast in troughs, like the brick molds, and it never, the patterning just never, it looked like all the rest of my blanks. Now, part of that might just be the way that I pour things, but I just wasn't really happy with them. But now I'm happy with these guys. So we launched them. I think Michael put a link. I'll just drop another link real quick, just in case anybody wants to check it out. So it should be pretty fun today. Let's see here. Anything else? I don't think there's any other news or updates or any of that kind of stuff. I'm still working on the pigment stuff. There's, like I said, there's a lot to unpack with trying to start selling a liquid, especially. There's so many different things with the bottling, the seals on these things. That's like a whole thing. So it's going to take a little while before I can actually launch the pigment side of things. But it's really close. I have pigment colors that are ready to go. I just need to, make more of it basically. But like I said, it's the logistics is kind of a big deal. And pricing and all that kind of stuff. Marketing a new product is a little bit more than just, hey, I got pigment for sale. So anyway, let's see. Let's scroll up and see where we're at here. Got a lot of people. Let's see here. Darren says, I've tried making camo. Never see what you're doing. Yeah, it's tough. And that's the thing, a lot of times with making blanks, the only way, even if you had clear PVC pipes, okay, so you can maybe kind of see the liquid going in there. It's more of a trial and error thing. I don't know, at least for me. Assessing the situation while you're doing it doesn't really do anything. I think that you're better off trying a technique. If you come up with some, way of pouring things, like a methodology, do that, try it, and you're going to just have to wait and see. I mean, I could pan over, but by the time I'm done with this pigment stuff, because the camo is one thing. It didn't take me that long to figure it out necessarily, but I'm trying to get all these pigment, colors kind of for the team colors matched up. I'm probably gonna bust through, I don't know. By the time I'm done, I may go through a carboy full of resin, just pouring blanks, seeing if they worked, and if they didn't, toss them basically, put them aside. I'm not throwing them away, but and then try another batch, because the way that I like to do things, I like to do it the way that I would normally pour things. I'm not going to make just one blank at a time. I got to see how does it work. So it can be pretty tedious and costly sometimes, Matte. Yeah, that's what I was, matte. I couldn't think of the word. Brain's crazy today. So I think that, like I said, there's nothing else to really talk about. We'll just flip to the overhead real quick. So what I've got here, I already cut a blank up. So the way that I'm doing these camo blanks, I mean, I guess I could maybe pour taller ones, but I don't know that there's any big push to have like continuous patterning. I don't know. Maybe like if somebody really wanted some, I could pour a tall one, but I think I'm just going to leave them in the standard size. So I just took 2 blanks. I cut one of them up. Let's see here. This one, and in this case, what you're gonna not get is like a continuous pattern from cap to body. But you can get, you know, what I did was I cut my my nib out, the section, out of the same blank, so you can get those 2 pieces. And then I just took another blank for the cap. Now, one thing that's going to be kind of cool about this pen, when I was down in Phoenix, Chad made me these little doohickeys. He was just messing around with this fiber laser thing. And so this is something that I've been wanting to do. And the reason he made these is because I had been talking about them. They're just little discs that he engraved my pen logo. It's Tahoe Pen Company. I don't have that registered and all that stuff yet, but whatever. Let's get my hands out of the way. Get in the camera. So what's going to happen is when I do, you know, when I'm working on the cap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around and just drill out the top. And which I got to think about this, so we're going to do this on the next one. But basically, just drill out a little disc, and then this guy will go in the top of the cap. I've always wanted to kind of do that. I need to think about like how I'm kind of guessing that I'm probably going to have to kind of do that first. No, I can do that probably last. I don't know. I'll have to think about how you want to do that, but that'll be kind of a neat addition to you know, something that I've never done before, basically. So let's see here. All right, Jim, thanks for dropping in. Well, not like a continuous, but not continuous pattern, but like an extended pattern, you know, where you can kind of see. I you know, for the most part with just like swirled blanks, color swirl. A lot of times you don't get enough patterns. Maybe you could get a big enough like blob, depending on how you poured things, where it would look kind of funny if it was like broken up. But I don't know. I don't think with these camo ones it's really going to matter. That's why I'm just like, well, I know that I can get good, you know, colors. One of the problems is when you start pouring, you know, these things I pour, they're about 6 inches long when I'm pouring them. My tall ones, I'm pouring about 9 inches, and that extra 3 inches, when you're pouring resin, especially with the colors, you know, like liquid pigment kind of colors, a lot of times they can bleed more because they're dropping further. So like the bottom half of your blank can be a little bit more bleedy, kind of washed out looking. So that's why I'd rather pour shorter ones if I can get away with it. So you made a handmade pen from the Raider blank. Nice. Yeah, and that's another reason why I'm kind of trying to switch over to, you know, the vertical pour. One, there's just, I mean, the biggest push, the biggest reason, I'm not going to lie about it, the biggest reason is I'm sick of cutting bricks. It sucks. I mean, really, the cost of my team color blanks, most of the cost is me standing at the table saw. So if I can pour them vertically, then it's just one cut that I'm making per blank versus, and it's like a short, you know, just cross cut, versus 4 cuts per blank, you know, lengthwise. And it's tedious, it's messy, it causes a lot more dust. And so that's the biggest reason why I've always wanted to switch to vertical. But the thing is, you know, I never really thought about actually doing it because the amount of time it's going to take is enormous for me to switch all of my recipes out. But when I started making bespoke pens, it's a lot easier to chuck up a round blank than have to like turn a square blank round first. It's just kind of a pain. So, and there's other, you know, drawbacks to using that other resin. So anyway, you know, a couple different things. So, but I have seen a few people make some pretty awesome, you know, team color bespoke pens out of those things, and I like them a lot. So, all right, let's go over to the lathe. Let's get things rolling. So what we're going to do today is pretty much focus probably on the body. I may be able to get the section milled today as well. And then I'm going to do the cap on the next stream because there's a little bit more going on and I haven't really sat down to think about what's going on. Actually, one link that I want to drop, I'm going to be using the new stainless bottle stoppers collet chuck, which is fabulous. So if anybody wants one of these things, Turner's has them right now, I believe. Let's see if they do or not. They had them. Call it Chuck Made in USA. Yeah, and they got both sizes now, guys. I don't know if they did before. So let me grab a link for you guys real quick here. I had my affiliate link too. Why not? Why not? Hopefully it won't ask me to do a bunch of crazy stuff to log. Oh, good Lord. How many images have a bus in them? It wasn't too bad. Sometimes those things, they go on like twice and, oh man, I can't handle that. Okay, so here's a link to the collet chuck. I need to get that. Actually, I can get that into the, really quickly, I'm gonna drop that link into the description of the video too. While I'm standing here, why not? It'll take 2 seconds. Nice, that was quick. He sucked me in with the link. Nice. They're in stock. I made quite a few. And Turner's Warehouse is going to be carrying those also, just to let you guys know. So if you're already at Turner's Warehouse, you know, buying some stuff, you can pick them up there too. No problem. Oh, that's the wrong collet. Sometimes I got to use the slightly larger collet, even on 3/4 inch blanks. Like what I end up doing. See. Ooh, it's so tight. Okay. Sometimes the blanks are a little bit closer to 3/4 right off the bat. I don't need to have. There. All right, so we got that thing set up, and one of the things that I started doing, just because I've only done this once, but I usually try to mark and explain like what side of the blank does the hole need to go on where I'm drilling and all that stuff. This is how the blank was set up. I'm also putting like a little X on the end. That's where I need to, you know, cut. Now with the section, you're cutting from both ends, so that's kind of useless. But on the body and the cap, it's not a bad idea to like mark the end where you need to drill. I think that's not a bad idea. And I'm gonna move the camera, so seasick time. Hold on, guys. It's kind of standing right in my way, so I'm gonna kick that thing back. Try and get the camera like sort of over the lathe a little bit. I wish I had lower ceilings. We have like super tall ceilings in this shop, and it really just kind of sucks. If you need to hang something, like it'd be nice to be able to like hang things over, like camera mounts over the lathe from the ceiling, but I'm not going to drop something from 18 feet. All right, so first things first, I'm going to use my center drill. Now I need to get my little notes out, because if I don't have my notes, things are going to go sideways really fast. Put those guys up real quick, just so I don't forget anything. Where's my little magnet? I had a little magnet. There it is. Okay, so I got my little notes up there. Actually, before I even do that, I am gonna square the face up. I cut this on the table saw, so it should be pretty pretty square, but it's not a bad idea just to hit it really quick. With the, let's see, I got to open up my app too, so we can see what's going on here. Go to my channel. There it is. Fortunately, it's not a bad idea just to hit it really quick. Listening to myself. I guess I'll just stick this there. So let's see here. Yes, I'm going to SWAT. I already got my tickets. Well, I don't know if I have like tickets to the, I don't know. Actually, I don't need tickets. I'm going with Turner's Warehouse. I got my hotel reservation, I should say. Still need to get plane tickets, but we'll get to that when we get to that. All right, so that's pretty square. Not a bad idea to square things up before you get started. Now, come in here with our center drill. I'm a little deep on that one. Didn't need to go that far. That's okay. And then the next thing, we're gonna hit it with a 6mm drill. And I like these, I found these, what do you call it? The company name for this drill bit is Goering. And it's a helical twist bit, and it just, with a standard 6mm, which I have one in here, and I'll show you the difference between so the chip clearing on this Goering is ridiculous compared to this. This doesn't very well clear chips. And so you got to constantly go in and out and in and out and do all this stuff. If you can find, now I'm not going to lie, this was ridiculously expensive and hard to find actually. But if you can find this, something like it, now I know that Fish, F-I-S-C-H, they also make these helical whatever bits. The only issue I have with them is they're really long. So, and I bought one. Where did I put that? I just want to show you the difference. If I can find it. Shoot, what did I do with it? I swear I have one somewhere. I just don't know where I put it now. But anyway, the point, I don't know where I put it. The point is, it was significantly longer, and I didn't love that. So this was the shortest bit that I could find in 6mm. Again, it's pretty difficult to, oh, here it is. Here it is. It was on the bench. So I just want to show you the difference in length. I guess it wasn't significant. I think the difference is you got a lot more, I don't know, there's more shank. This one just seems like it's gonna stay more straight to me. I don't know. So Fish is available at a lot of places. You can get them in like Rockler, I think, Woodcraft, Amazon. But I definitely, especially for like the small holes, I really think that these, if you know, and the reason I'm drilling a 6mm hole is for the tenon cutter, which, where's my little, the tenon cutter. Now you don't have to use this rod. It's definitely gonna keep everything aligned perfectly. But that's why you're drilling a 6mm. You can like ditch this step if you're not using the tenon cutter. You wouldn't do this. If you're just, you know, cutting your threads the shoulder by hand, you know. But anyway, I really highly recommend picking one of these guys up. I will give it a little bit of a, I'm just using WD-40 at this point. Like, it works fine. You can use like oils and all these different things. But I mean, look at those threads coming, or the shavings coming out. Like, I don't even need to stop. Now I am going to stop just because it's starting to make a little bit of noise, but I mean, they like just come out, basically, you know. It's significantly better than a standard drill bit. And we'll give it just a little bit. I need to go in about 3 inches, enough to clear that little this little doohickey. Which 3 inches is about the length of this, of the threads or whatever, the cut. It's to about right there. Let me grab a little bit of that WD. Now, I shut the lathe off to do this, to put it back in. The problem that I've had is if it's still spinning and something grabs, it can kind of suck your tailstock in. If you're just pushing the tailstock up and it's not locked. If you're just winding, you know, the thing, and that's fine as long as the tailstock's locked. But if there's any movement, it can kind of grab and just suck it in, which is not really that fun. I'm going to be completely honest. Look at those threads. Look at that. Look at that. Oh man, that's buttery. Buttery smooth. And the thing about this is also it reduces the friction and reduces the amount of heat that's being generated when you're cutting the threads. So like realistically, what I'd prefer is to get every single bit that I use this, but they start to get pretty darn expensive when especially when you're buying larger ones, and they're kind of hard to find sometimes. So definitely though, for the 6mm, I highly recommend picking that one up. So problem is I'm gonna have to switch out my notes because I can't see the chat here. Let's see here. Question. Do you think your newer vertical pours look different? Yeah, they're going to be a little bit different, just because of the way that you're pouring the stuff. But I mean, really, I don't really have one of my old ones. The thing is, when you hold up a blank, so I can kind of give you an idea here. All right. So this is one of my original, you know, square ones. The thing is, it's square right now, right? And so this is another thing, because I always said, oh, I like the looks of the square ones better. However, if I turn this round, the reality is it's probably going to look pretty much like this. So, I mean, really, is that bad? Is that significantly different? I don't think so. I don't think it's really going to be that much different in the end. I don't have a lot of these like turned up necessarily like the originals, but I think you can get certain looks. And the other thing is this resin that I use, because I don't use Alumilite Clear Slow for these, right? For the originals the square ones. I use Alumilite White, which is a totally different animal compared to Alumilite Clear Slow. So you can also get even different looks using Clear Slow in a brick mold. So this is what mine look like though, using that resin. And I mean, this is a Bear's blank, still kind of dialing the color in, but it's going to be pretty much like this. So are they significantly different? No. You know, I think that, and that was one of the big kickers. Like that's why I'm doing so many tests. I'm pouring, you know, that's part of the reason why I'm pouring like a batch for every color. It's to give me a ton of practice doing this, because there is a difference, a little bit of a difference when you're pouring liquid pigments, I think, compared to like micas. Micas just do not bleed really. And even if they kind of did, they don't really look that bad. Liquid pigments can bleed, like certain colors can be extremely terrible. You know, blue and yellow, still haven't figured out a solution to that one. But I mean, even blue and orange, yellow and purple, Those can bleed pretty bad, and some other ones, like even red and white, bleeds a little bit, and you get kind of pinkish areas sometimes. So you got to be a little bit careful. They're a little bit more difficult, but between like pouring under control, not getting kind of crazy, and you know, waiting for the right temperature, you're pretty good. All right, so now I got to do my tenon cutter. Sorry, I can't just like not think about things when I'm doing this. So questions and thinking, that whole thinking thing, it really gets in the way when I'm doing these bespoke pens. So the let's see here. I think I need to redo this tenon cutter. It needs to be set up with a 14. So, and if you're not familiar with the tenon cutter, if you do want to get into bespoke pens, this makes the, like creating the shoulder, like you need to get a pretty accurate diameter before you cut threads on an external thread, you know, like the male threads, you know, whatever. And I always kind of struggled with that because it was always this back and forth thing that took me like half an hour to try and get things, and then it'd be like crooked, and you don't want that. You want it to be dead perpendicular, or I guess parallel to the rotation of the blank, you know, like the whatever. and you need it to be parallel, and you need it to be the right diameter. Otherwise, your threads don't really work that well. And so this minimizes. I mean, it pretty much eliminates any issues. And I mean, part of the thing is I'm just not excellent, you know, doing that by hand. So I'd rather just, and I don't do it a lot. So, you know, my main focus really is the resin casting. But the way this works, there's these bushings. This bushing itself is set up for a 14 millimeter thread. So when I cut the 14 millimeter, which is what I'm putting on this pen, when I cut those threads, this is going to cut the blank the perfect diameter, and you know it's going to be square and you know, parallel to the rotation. And it's not cheap. I'm not going to lie. This tenon cutter. Let's see here. I got to just double check and make sure that I got this thing pretty good. Yeah, that's good. You know, it's an expense, and it's you know, really unnecessary. You can do it by hand, but man, it significantly reduces the amount of time that you're messing with cutting a tenon just to get the, you know, the threads right. So if you got extra cash, this is something I would recommend picking up. I just think that what it's doing is it's turning your wood lathe, it's creating it, it's making it work more like a metal lathe. I mean, that's the advantage of having a metal lathe. Everything's all, you know, set up and parallel and perpendicular. It's harder to do manual cuts like making a tenon that's perfectly, you know, parallel and square and everything. It's much harder to do that on a wood lathe by hand. Much easier on a metal lathe. All right, so let's stop yapping. I'm going to turn on the dust collector for a second here. This thing throws some chips. Can you guys see? Yeah, you can see pretty good. I usually go around 1200. I like to get the speed up a little bit, right? And I like to just get a grip on this thing, because if you don't want it spinning or doing anything weird, but at the same time, you also don't really want your hand on the tenon cutter, because if it starts moving, there's a cutter on that thing. So just, you know, you don't need to death grip this thing. Just give it a little extra hold, and I creep in until it starts engaging, and then you can start turning the handle a little bit more. Now one thing I forgot to do is measure. It's probably about it, but I want to measure where I'm going. It's not that big of a deal, but I do have measurements that I like to hit. That's not right. Well, let's put it in the inches. Yeah, actually, I pretty much nailed that. It's maybe a little bit longer than I normally do. Huh. Good thing I was paying attention halfway. Sometimes it all works out, you know? Let's see here. I'm just scrolling down. Cooper's here. What's up, man? Oh, Cooper's always getting some tattoos. That's cool. Nice. Parabolic flutes. That's what it is. I highly recommend those, especially for that 6mm. If you've got this thing and you're cutting the 6mm, get a parabolic flute drill bit. It's just, it's going to make your life 1,000 times easier. All right, so we got that thing. Let's see here. I'm going to chamfer this hole. So we're done with the tenon cutter at this point. For now, we will come back to that on the section. What am I doing? Chamfer. So I like to just chamfer the end of this. Just it'll make the tap a little bit easier to kind of just grab onto those threads. Just makes it, and you don't, I mean, we're just nibbling. You're not doing like putting like a huge chamfer on that thing. You're just nibbling to make the tap, or the die in this case, thread, you know, just grab on there and thread a little bit easier. All right, so next step, what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little bit of sanding here. Just going to sand that tenon down a little bit, just to kind of, the thing is, you're not going to be able to polish it after the fact. And it also just takes a little bit of material off. You don't want to go crazy on this part. You don't want to take a bunch of material off, sanding it, you know. But a little bit can just make your threads a little bit nicer sometimes, depending. It also just kind of has to do with like the settings on your tenon cutter and all that kind of stuff, but I usually find that my threads work a little bit better, and they certainly look a lot better. So this is 600 grit right here. It's hard to kind of get into that corner. Okay, that's it. I'm not doing a whole lot. We're just going to do a little bit of sanding. This is the green zona. And I'm going to go up to the gray, and then I'm pretty much done. Like, you could polish this up and everything. I just don't really see it being that necessary, you know. Okay, that's it. That's just a little bit of extra, and like I said, it kind of depends on your personal taste. You could not do that completely, and it's not going to be a big deal. But if you really want like all those little extra touches, adding, you know, a nice polished tenon and the threads there will go a long way to making your pens look a lot better. You know, for your selling, when you're selling them. Oh, I lost my. All right, so next step, we're going to use our. This is the other tool that I highly recommend grabbing. It's the Neil's Niche. Turner's Warehouse carries these. Once again, what this is doing is giving your lathe, your wood lathe, the same kind of setup. And actually, even if you had a metal lathe, this tool is awesome. Like, there's people with metal lathes that use this as well. So it's not even like really an advantage in that sense, metal versus wood, because lots of people with metal lathes use this thing too. But what it does is it creates an easily movable, tappable thing that's set up along the line of rotation on your lathe. So this guy, what we're going to do is we're going to back this out because it's on the back side. The back side has typically, and I think almost every single die is going to be this way. The back side is flatter and it has no letters or anything. The front side's got letters and it's a little bit tapered to make it a little bit easier to get things started. So typically you're going to want to start on that side, run it, and it should start much better for you. But then you're going to flip it because you want to be able to get onto that non-tapered side so you can get your threads a little bit deeper onto your tenon. Now, if there's two different types of people. I like to put a little relief in my cap so you can't see it. If you're not going to do that, you would want to put a little relief cut at the back end of the shoulder here on your tenon. Otherwise, your cap's going to be like super tight. The threads won't get all the way up in there, and it's going to be kind of problematic when you put it on. So one of two ways. You gotta give it a little bit of a relief somewhere. I just prefer not seeing that little, you're going to have this like indentation on the tenon, and I don't love it. It's just, to me, that's one thing that I don't want to see on my pens. So I don't think that, regardless if I'm gifting it or selling it, I don't really think that people want to see that personally. It may not matter to a lot of people, I don't know, but I don't like it personally, so. I'm just seeing how this runs. It's running true. We're going to go in, 1, 2, 3, back it out, 1, 2, 3, back it out. Now I'm going to back it all the way off, just about until it's going to pop off. And what I'm doing is trying to clear some of them chips away because they can kind of load up. You don't want to go too aggressively up against that shoulder, especially on this first round, because we're going to clear that up when we flip the die around. Where did my... Actually, this thing is not tight. There we go. All right, so we're going to back this guy. We're going to flip this guy around. This is the fun part. I really like making the bespoke pens. All these little... It seems like it's like, like a lot of steps and a lot of messing around with stuff. And it is, kind of, but it's not hard. That's for sure. Like none of these steps are particularly difficult. And it's really fun to be able to do all these operations. You're not paying some factory in China or Taiwan or wherever to cut threads for you. You're doing it yourself. Now, this is the tricky part, is trying to find... Trying to get on the... What I'm doing is going backwards. It's not really working out so well for me. I got to get some glasses. What you don't want to do is cross thread these things. So you want to make sure that you're coming back on. Usually it'll kind of... This one's being difficult. I think I'm on. Hopefully I'm on, not cross-threading anything. Seems like a significant amount of shavings though. But I didn't cross-thread that. Gotta be honest, guys, I'm not feeling super confident about that. It's nice to have parts laying around. So that you can just try things out and see. Yeah. I'm going to try and run this one more time. Hopefully not screw up anything. Kind of feels like I might have cross-threaded these. There, that time I felt it lock on. That was much better. Okay, that looks good to me. Okay. Now, one thing that's kind of nice to have, and I don't really, sort of, yeah. It's like a toothbrush or something. So you can get in there and kind of clean up those little shavings. All right, so now let's, I wish I had another cap. No. I'm going to use a different cap. This is a really good pen. This is one of my good pens. I'm going to pull one of my, I don't care so much about them, pens. I don't know. I like all my pens, so it's kind of tough here. We'll use this cap. There we go. Okay, so that's running pretty good. Now, I don't put a lot of threads on, as you probably noticed. I mean, you don't need that many threads in the first place, but you know, if I doubled that amount, then you're sitting there twisting and twisting and twisting until the cap seats. So I'd rather go for kind of a shorter tenon there. Okay, so that seemed like a lot of work to just put body threads on, but I want to make sure everything turned out the way that it was supposed to. All right, let's see here. $11.40 in Nevada. Right now it's $12.48 because we just did daylight savings. So you leap forward. I'm in the Pacific time zone. They could just get rid of all this time change stuff and I would be happy. I guess there's some bill possibly in somewhere legislation they're trying to pass to eliminate it, but I would prefer that they leave it. I think my wife Gretchen and I always talk about this. What I would rather have is more sunlight in the winter, personally, like in the afternoons. So that would be my preferred thing. Now, I think that the problem with, like, I think everybody on the planet wants to get rid of daylight savings change thing. The problem is nobody can agree on which way to go. And I'm like, why don't we just put it in the middle? Let's just go 30 minutes in the middle and every state is the same. That would be fine with me. But that way nobody wins. But we all win. I think the problem is if you do it the way that I was talking in the winter, I think that it's like way darker for a lot longer in the mornings. Maybe like it's later before the sun rises, which I don't get up early, so I don't care personally. But what am I doing? Okay, let's look at I gotta focus. I'm just, my brain is not here today. All right, so what I kind of take out, I don't do a stepped thing for the converter. This is, I just, nobody can see this. So, you know, and you can argue that it fits tighter or whatever, but like nobody can even look in there really and see, I don't think. So what I do is I just use a T bit. I don't know if this will, I don't know if I can get the camera, like letter T is in Tom. That's like the perfect bit to just go all the way on this thing and I'm done. Rather than doing multiple bits. And I think you could probably, let's see, I'm going to look up what the T bit is. I highly recommend, they have these online. A lot of times, like some of your tool companies and stuff have these. It's a chart and it shows you the decimal equivalents to your fractions and your numbered bits, the index. What do they call those? I don't know. They're numbers. And as well as your millimeters, you know, so like it's got everything. It's got your letters, numbers, fractions, and metric. And it just shows you like what's going on. This is really helpful if you're like, oh, I need to drill, because like, you know, a lot of the pen kits are like, oh, you need a 25/32 or a 12.5 millimeter. Well, maybe you don't have that bit, but if you know 12.5 is really close to, 31/64, maybe. You can use your dial calipers or whatever, not dial, but your calipers to like measure your part and see, I don't know, it helps you to kind of understand what's going on. And so that's what I did, was I measured the converter and went on here and found what's the closest, number, decimal, and then what bit is that. So what I'm doing is I'm drilling out a 0.358 hole. I think 9 millimeter is what a lot of people use, but I think you might have to step it and do all kinds of weird stuff. So I was like, I don't see the point. I'm just going to drill a T and it works fine and everybody's happy. So it's up to you. Now, I got a little mark on my drill bit, so that's good. Got that ready. I'm going to put a little there. Put a little WD-40 there. We're going to go in there and drill this out. Now I'm going to actually turn on the dust collector for this one because it's going to spit out a good amount of chips. Now again, I wish I could pick up I don't think I could find a T-size bit with the parabolic flutes. Drill hole 3 inches deep. I'm just going to double check my mark. Pretty sure that's right. Yeah, okay. So I just do one hole. I'm going to turn the dust collector on. Let's see, I'm going to just double check the... Yeah, some days are like that. I'll come back to your question, Kev. I'm not sure exactly what you meant, what we were talking about when you asked that. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are more efficient ways of doing things. I'm certainly not an efficient bespoke pen maker. I kind of take my time and I don't do this like a lot, you know. I make one every once in a while and it's fine. So I think that, you know, if you're an occasional bespoke pen maker like I am, it makes sense to just take your time. There's no rush. All right, so we got our hole drilled. Now I'm gonna create a little chamfer on the inside edge. And this little handy tool makes it really easy. So what it does is it's chamfering. Don't need to do a lot, just give it a little bit. It'll kind of chamfer that so when we put our threads on, when we use our tap, it'll engage a little bit easier. It's always nice to put a little chamfer on, just so that your taps and dies don't struggle trying to get in there. It's kind of nice to have little pipe cleaners and things too, just to pull any junk out that might be in there. You're not going to get it all out no matter what you do, but if there's like a big blockage, that can kind of help. Blowing it out can sometimes help as well. All right, so let's pull out our Neil's Niche tool again. This time we're using the tap holder. So we got to get that mounted in there. And that the Neil's Niche tool, it comes with three sizes? Well, and maybe some of them like differ. There may be like different kits or something like that. Most likely I bought the one that's got everything. There's at least 2 of these tap holders, 2 different sizes for different size taps. And I want to say it came with 3. Why don't I have a third one in here? Oh, there it is. Yeah, so there's an even smaller one. I don't use that as much. That's why it's hidden probably. And it also comes with 3 die holders. So we got these 2. I'm going to put this down so it's not confusing. So these 2. And there's an even smaller one. Again, I don't really use that as much. I use these the largest ones the most. It comes with all that stuff, and then this bar mounts into your tailstock with your Morse taper. And then this slides over. Let's see, can you see that? Oh, trying to. This thing slides over. And it's not a bad idea to give this a little bit of lubrication here and there. It was a little sticky. We don't want it to be like that. We want it to glide smoothly. All right, so what I'm going to get is my 10 millimeter by 1 tap. Get that thing ready. Now I'm going to stop and go back and see what Kev's question was. Let's see here. Oh, McMaster has parabolic. Nice. I'm going to check that out. Thanks for the tip, Vinny. Michael's here. Got to leave in a bit. That's cool. Thanks for coming in. Let's see here. Where was that question? How long or short is that thread? Are you talking about the I'm guessing the body thread that, you know, that, right? This one on the blank. It's about 1/4 inch. Maybe more like 3/16. 3/16 to 1/4 inch. I definitely don't go over 1/4 inch. What is the decimal? I know what the decimal is that I usually shoot for. So let me look at what's going on here. Yeah, I usually go a little bit larger than 3/16. This one might have been a little short. I didn't use my calipers. Usually I mark the blank. Makes things a little bit better. I haven't done one of these pens for a while either, so not only is my brain a little foggy today for some reason. All I'm not following the script particularly well. I am following my things. I didn't look at the actual measurement. Chamfer, cut threads. Okay, so we're just about done here. I'm just going 3 forward and then backing off, and that's just kind of breaking the chips. That backwards motion. And I usually put the threads in fairly deep. The thing is, you don't need to go that deep to get your section to fit. I mean, I don't need to go that far. The section threads are not significant in any way, right? The problem is your body, sometimes, depending on what's going on, sometimes your mandrel is going to require you to go a little bit further in. So I kind of end up going a good ways in. Again, nobody can see how far the threads go. So, but this is something that I could probably kind of fine tune a little bit more and make sure it's good. The other issue is your tap. Even though what I use is a bottom tap, it's meant to go into a hole and like bottom out entirely. But even with that, there's still, and I don't know if I can get, let me this thing, and there may be better ones or whatever, I don't know, this is, the 10x1 is definitely one of the cheaper taps that you can buy. Trying to zoom in on the threads there. But there's still a taper, even though this is the bottom. Let me see if I can find one of the other ones, just to kind of show you the difference. They might call it, do they call these a plug tap? I don't know. Here we go. I bought a set and they have different tapers on them. So this one that I'm using is the bottoming tap, and you can see there's not much of a taper on the end, but there is some. There's a little bit of a taper on the end so that it'll get in there. This one, whatever this one's called, has a significant taper on it. This thing's tapered all the way. Let me grab like a pointer just to show you guys what I'm seeing. Hopefully this will work. So holding them about even. The taper from the end there goes to about here on the bottom tap, where it goes to like here. It's tapering all the way down here, which means you're going to have to go in even further to get a full thread. So that's another reason why I kind of go a little bit deeper, is to make sure that I'm getting full threads all the way down in there. It's not just the section. It also has to do with your mandrel, which is a little bit, mine generally, you need to go a little bit further than the section actually goes. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to blow it out. Now, there's going to be junk in there no matter what you do until you actually, run it through the sonic cleaner and all that stuff. You're still going to have little bits. So I like to be a little bit careful, but you can see, like, blowing it out does not pull all the junk out. The air, that is definitely not going to get it all out. Usually you got to tap it and do all this stuff. I don't really like taking it off and on a lot, because every time you remove it from the headstock, from the chuck, and then replace it, it's going to be off just a little bit. So I like to try and keep it in place, clean it out as best as I can, because I like to test out and make sure that my mandrel is going to work, that it's drilled, as far as I need to go, that the threads are feeling good. They're a little tight, a little sticky. Yeah, see, I need to go a little bit further, it seems like. There might be some junk down in the bottom. You got to be careful about that. Don't force, if you're doing testing like this and you haven't fully cleaned it out, do not force it, because that will be a nightmare. You can end up stripping your threads. Come on, get in the hole. I'm going to go backwards. It'll kind of thunk. There it went. I'm just going to give it another round. Feeling pretty good, but I need to go a little bit further. I actually have a line on there that I typically go to. but it always seems like so far. Oh, that's part of the problem. It's twisting. Okay. All right, let's give it another cleaning really quick. That's feeling nice right there. Smooth. That's how it should be. Smooth all the way in, smooth all the way out. Okay, so we got the body done. Let me scroll down and see. Yeah, I know Arizona's smart. It just stays. Seems like the most logical thing to me. I mean, I really don't even like when because like a lot of people say, oh, you lose an hour when you go into the spring. You know, like you go to bed at, midnight, but it's actually 1. And then you wake up and it's like earlier or something. And then the other way, you're technically gaining an hour, but like, I'd rather it just didn't change, That would be a whole lot better. Come on, get out of there. Look at that. Did you see that, guys? I was blowing it out. I was using all kinds of stuff, and then you got to tap it. So no matter what, oh, did I probably forgot to zoom out. Look at all this stuff. I tapped it one time, and all this dust came flying out of there. So that's why I say, if you're testing things, especially with those mandrels, be careful. Don't try and force. If your threads are a little bit tight or it feels like it's not wanting to go in there, you could have a bunch of junk jammed in the bottom of this thing, and it's not. There's nowhere for the rod to go, basically, and so you can end up stripping your threads out by forcing it to go further. There it went. Nice. And one other thing that I'll mention is sometimes I still have to go back in because everything seemed, really good when I tested it. But one thing you might find is that you got some junk on the threads of your mandrel that might make it kind of sticky. So always make sure that you're cleaning that thing off. Again, it's good to have some sort of a brush, toothbrush or something to kind of clean things out. But a lot of times things might feel a little sticky when you're testing them. And really what it is there's just junk in there. Now, having said that, sometimes something kind of changed a little bit after you got it off the lathe or whatever. Sometimes you need to actually go back in after you've done all your tapping and all that stuff and rerun it. So it's not a bad idea to have a manual tap holder, like a T-bar kind of thing, whatever. I don't know what they call these things. Having a thing that you can actually, hold. I don't think these things are particularly expensive. That way you can, rerun it by hand. You got to be very careful when you're doing this, but if you need to, if things kind of tightened up for some reason, you can go back in by hand and just kind of clean out the threads again, and it should help things out. So not bad to have all these little tools and things just in case you need to kind of, again, it's just mainly to clean things up. And it's pretty common, I think, at least for me, it's common to have things kind of be catchy and sticky after you've taken it off the lathe and you thought everything was perfect. I have to go back in and kind of clean threads up and do stuff. So might be the way that I'm doing things, I guess, but I think that's probably pretty typical for most people. All right, so let's do the section. We can do all this work too, I think. It's only 1 o'clock. I don't want to turn these things today. I could, I could just slap this thing on the lathe and turn it, but I really like getting all my components done first. It just makes me feel better to know that everything's working together. So let's switch to the section. Let's get that thing done. And like I said, next week we're going to do the cap, and I can start turning, you know, stuff afterwards. But I want to be able to kind of sit down and this week kind of figure out, make sure that I'm doing that extra thing, the little embedment thing that's going in the cap with my logo. I want to make sure that I know how that needs to work. Got to get my cue cards out here. All right, so we're going to square the faces up again. Can you guys see what's going on? I don't know what's happening. I don't even know what's happening with my lathe right now. Let's put you guys like here. Yeah. Blanks are just kind of tight on this. What's going on here? Sometimes you get a little bit of junk kind of. Come on. Okay, I've had it with this. We're going to pull out the bigger. See what I mean? Sometimes you need the 20 millimeter. Problem is it's usually way big, but come on, get on there. Whatever. Oh, for goodness sakes. All right, so we're just going to square these faces up real quick. Okay. Got one. You're in millimeter? Well, you got Google in New Zealand, right? Convert. That's what I always have to do. It is pretty sad. I really wish that we were on the metric system. Problem is, I'm just not particularly willing to mess with it. I know some things, like I know that like 19 millimeters is about 3/4 inch. So that might help. How about that? A quarter of that, or a third of that. Is the number that you want, I think. Okay, so we want to mark how long I want my section. And let's see here. So the nib, and this is where the body. I always mark this one especially. It doesn't, in this case, it doesn't matter that much, but it is lined up. This does match up with my body. That's always the tough thing about doing these bespoke pens. I mean, unless you buy material that is like literally exact, like you can buy like acrylic blanks and it'll, I think pretty much every blank, it's the same exact pattern. So in that case, it's not a big deal. But I mean, for 90% of the materials that you're going to be using, you know, they don't match up. Like you're not going to be able to get a continuous pattern between the body and the section and the body and the cap. You got to pick one or the other. And most people, I think most people probably try, you know, if you buy a bespoke length blank, that's the advantage. You can get your cap and your body out of that blank, and you know, that's the normal thing. The other reason why typically I pick, I didn't have the option because you can't get a body and a cap out of a 5.5 inch blank, which is what these are. But my biggest thing is also with the section, you turn it down so much thinner than the body that a lot of times that's really not going to matter that much to me. The patterning may not even really match up, whereas the size of the cap and the body are a little bit, the diameter are a little bit closer. So you have a better shot of getting those, any pattern lined up a little bit better. So let's see here. I need to go put the nib, let's see, body side in. Let me think about what I'm doing here. I want my section to be, what do I want it to be? 1 inch? I got all these numbers written down somewhere. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Blank. Section, okay. Yeah, maybe about 1 inch. Let me just double check the measurement on this thing. Ooh. All right, so what I'm going to do is, this thing's actually a little bit short. I cut this a little short. What I'm going to do is, I want about a 1/4 inch for my threads. So that's what I'm actually going to, where I'm going to mark this blank. I'm just going to do that with my calipers. Put them to 0.25 inches. Maybe a little lower than that, a little less. Because the section length is actually a little bit short. Doesn't need to be going that fast. All right, so now we know where everything's going. And I've mounted it properly. Section's a little bit more, there's like more steps, there's more drill bits and things. So I kind of have to be, let's see, the tenon cutter is going to cut that down. I always have to be a little bit more, pay a little bit more attention to this one. The other two are pretty simple. The cap is really, really fast. Like there's not much going on there. Section has the most steps. It's not hard, it's still not hard. So we're going to first hit it with the center drill. Always start with the center drill, that way you make sure that your drills are going in where they need to be. Then we're going to pull out the 6mm again. Parabolic flute. Okay, get some WD going. Okay. And then this guy is going all the way through. Okay. Some good shavings. Did you see how smooth those shavings came out? That parabolic flute, guys. Anytime you need better chip clearing, these parabolic flute drill bits are the way to go. And they've got a whole set for like normal pen turning stuff. All the standard sizes. Fish has one of everything. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you can get I don't know if Turner's Warehouse, I don't think Turner's Warehouse has them, but I do know that I'm pretty sure like Woodcraft and Rockler sell them, as well as Amazon. You can find them there. All right, so then we're going to pull out the tenon cutter, turn that thing off. Let's see here. Oh. Yeah, I don't really think that you're gonna, I'm not worried about breaking the, what was the question? Somebody said, oh, thread strength, yeah, I don't know. I know of other people that make them definitely that short, that's what they do for a living is make these pens. So I really don't think that, I don't know how making this, because it's not going to be, like, how far are you making it? How big? You know? I don't know how that could affect making it, like, making the tenon shorter like that. I don't see how that could affect the, like, the thread strength or whatever. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I think that I don't think that that should matter too much. You need some threads to get your cap to actually seat, but I don't know that making that, you know, a 1/4 inch versus like a 1/2 inch, I don't see how the 1/4 inch long tenon is going to significantly impact the thread strength. I don't know. Because you're not really cranking down on anything, you know. If anything, I would say a longer tenon would make things possibly weaker, depending on how far you're going. The biggest thing is how thick the, you know, how big is the hole or whatever. I would say that would be the determining factor. I don't know though. What am I doing? We need the, I'm thinking about thread strength. So we're going back to the tenon cutter. This time I'm pulling out my, the one thing that I wish they did was marked these bushings. I mean, obviously you just pull out a Sharpie and that's fine, but it'd be nice if they were like stamped or engraved or something. And I've already actually voiced my concern with Turner's Warehouse. They're like, I don't know, I forget what the, if they're doing it maybe, or if like they can't do it for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know what the result was, but all right, so we got that guy going, and it's always good just to double check and make sure that you got that, you know, even across your that thing. And you don't really, one thing I would recommend is don't jam the cutter all the way up to the shoulder of this bushing, because it could have just a little bit of extra material right in that corner. So I always pull it back just a little bit. It just to make sure. You're definitely going to have a nice smooth surface, you know. But when you get back into that corner, there could just be a little lip or something kind of just a little bit off that could end up cockeying your cutter. Doesn't take much. A few thousandths could kind of throw a kind of a wrench into the works and give you a kind of an angled tenon. I don't think it would matter that much in this case, but you also, what can end up happening is you could have it wider, so you're not really getting the true diameter that you really want on your tenon. All right, let's see here. Tim just ordered a 6mm. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I really think that's, if again, I don't know that you need a 6mm unless you're using the tenon cutter. That's what that's for. But for those really small, I mean, I would sit there and go in like a 1/4 inch and it'd start kind of heating up, and it took forever with those normal. And maybe, you know, like these, I mean, these are pretty good drill bits that I was using. They're the, oh shoot, what is the brand? The Viking brand, or Nordsman, whatever, either one. They're both pretty good brands. I don't know, maybe there's other ones that have flutes that are a little better for this for some reason, but I mean the best way to go, that's why I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm just gonna go get a parabolic. because I know they clear chips extremely well, and the results kind of speak for themselves. I mean, what I should do is show you what it looks like with a normal drill bit. It's not fun. Even a brand new perfect drill bit. The other thing is you're probably not going to even have to sharpen the parabolic, drop that, as often either, because they're not generating as much heat. That's what kind of kills your drill bits. And so if you generate heat on it, you'll be sharpening your drill bits, or you should be sharpening your drill bits more often. All right, let's get you guys into the action here. This is one of the funnest parts. Got to see the threads being cut. Like I said, I just kind of ease in at first. All right, easy does it. All right, so one thing that I'm going to do is I like to put a drill bit inside, just to kind of give the inside part a little bit of strength. That's the one thing that this is a piece of plastic, and so when you cut the threads, it can kind of warp a little bit. So it's good to have something kind of keeping, that's the unfortunate thing, or the drawback to having to use the tenon cutter. You got that hole in the middle where if you didn't have that hole, cutting the threads on these tenons would not be a problem. Now on the larger 14 millimeter, you've got quite a bit of meat left, but on this 10 millimeter, there's not a whole lot of meat on the on this tenon, and so you got to be a little bit more careful. It's nice to have something kind of go in there and take up the, give it something to kind of make sure it's not collapsing or anything. Now first, what I'm going to do is we're going to, let's see here. Yeah, I want to sand those threads real quick. Or the tenon. I think I see a question there. Yeah, I know the parabolic flute bits are not cheap. But I definitely think it's worth it, personally. Now, am I going to buy like one for every single thing? Probably not. You don't necessarily need that. I find that the flutes on most drill bits for larger sizes, typically they clear out your chips a little bit faster anyway. But for this 6 millimeter, again, this is specifically for the folks that are using the tenon cutter. If you've got that and you're cutting with these 6 millimeter things, and especially, I think it's even more important on these bespoke pens, because if you start overheating things and the material warps or does weird stuff, that could be not great, and we got to cut threads into this material, and you got to have fairly stable dimensions and all that stuff. So to minimize the heat and all the other things that go with that, and just to save some time, not having to clear the chips every 2 seconds. I think that's a good investment, that 6mm. Do you need to replace all your drill bits that you use for pen turning and get the fish things? No. Can they help? Yeah. They can make things go a little smoother sometimes. But I agree, they're pretty expensive. And to be honest, that Gehring one that I bought, or Gehring, whatever, I mean, it was significantly more expensive than fish. I'm pretty sure. I had to go to, there's a tool supply company thing. It was so weird. I had to go to this place physically, and I felt like I was in 1973. I just order things online, usually. I mean, typically you can even just walk in and things are all computerized. It was so crazy. Them trying to find this specific thing for me, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like it's 1975, the way these systems are working. And then it cost a fortune on top of it, and I was like, geez. And I tried a few different ones because I wasn't sure. I'd never used these bits before, so that cost me even more. But as long as I don't lose the product number, should be able to. But I can't even find them online, I don't think, so that's not very fun. May have to end up getting the fish ones anyway. All right, so we're going back to Neil's niche. Let me get my center drill ready in my drill bit, or my chuck here real quick. There we go, got that thing ready. Get this thing ready for the Neil's niche setup. We're gonna cut the threads on this tenon next. So back to a die, the die holder there. All right, now before I begin, I am going to put a chamfer on the end there. Oh, always running into something. Jeez. Okay. Like I said, you're barely even nibbling anything off the end there. But that little relief makes a pretty significant difference. Now, I think I saw a question. Hold on a minute. We're going to back you guys back out a little bit. What is this dust collector thing? Hopefully that'll. Problem is the camera's covering my phone, so I couldn't see what was going on. So let me stop real quick and see. I think I missed something. Oh, they don't keep the bespoke. Yeah, everybody. Well, I mean, I don't know. These things are really fun to make. I would imagine that most people that turn, the type of people that turn pens are into this kind of thing. I mean, not everybody, for sure. There are some people who are like, I have no interest in making bespoke pens, but a lot of us, are into this kind of thing. And the biggest thing was, I mean, 10 years ago, there wasn't all these tools available. Like, you pretty much kind of needed to have your own metal lathe, or you struggled a lot. Or, talking about the prices of equipment right now, like tools, you'd have to go in alone, and the cost of a lot of the dies and some of these other tools were so prohibitively, I mean, hundreds of dollars is what you would have to pay because nobody made them. So now we have like a market of these things, and you can, oops, sorry, kicked the tripod. You can actually get the tools now, So let's see here. Did I sand? Yeah, I didn't sand that. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? I almost messed up. I want to put that drill bit in there. And actually, I was pulling the wrong drill bit out. I want to put the one that I drilled with in there. There we go. The nice thing is the Neil's niche slides over that as well. So you can put that drill bit in there. And again, that's just giving the tenon a little bit of stability so it doesn't want to crumple. And then on this die, I don't do the flip it around. I find on the 10 by 1, 10 millimeter by 1, it's not hard to get things started using the back side of it. So the one that doesn't have, you don't need the ramp up, the chamfered, you know, whatever. What do you call that? Where I was kind of showing you guys, you know, the back side of the die that doesn't have the letters and stuff, it's like flat, whereas the front side has kind of a taper to it to make it easier to start. So you always want to, typically, you always want to start with the side of the die that has the letters or numbers and stuff like print on it. It's usually going to be tapered on that side, and then you'll run it. It'll start easier for you, but then you got to go back and flip it. But I find on this 10 by 1, I don't need to do the flipping thing. I just run it on the back side. Everything works just fine. Not entirely certain if atomizing WD-40 and then breathing it is particularly healthy for anybody. Probably is not. But who knows? Maybe it makes you invincible. There aren't many studies on that topic. Now, on this case, I don't mind, you know, there's no other, as far as I know, I guess you could maybe make a relief cut in your body threads, but in this case, you're usually not taking the section apart or seeing it or anything like that unless you need to change ink. And most people aren't really paying attention. So this is where I do use just a relief cut instead of, you know, hiding it on the inside like I do on the cap. And I just use like a 1/16 inch parting tool. Frankly, I don't even have a handle on it. Actually, I guess I did handle it. Is that what I use? I guess so. Wait a minute. What's that? Oh, yeah. Must have used it for something because I usually don't even actually have it handled. But it is right now. So just to double check, cut threads, relief. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're going to come in here. I don't know if can you guys see what's even happening? Hold on. Frankly, you don't need to go buy a 1/16 inch parting tool. I had one, so that's what I used, but you could literally like make your own. Oh my God, the camera. Sorry guys. I'm trying to get in here so you can see this as good as possible. Okay. So you can see what I'm doing here, but you need to relieve the cuts. So I don't even really mess around too much going back and forth on this tenon, the threads. Okay, and I relieve it pretty well. But I am going to test it out and make sure everything works as it should be working. Oh my God, I almost even lined it up. Wow. It's lined up perfectly. These are my marks. What? That was smooth. Sweet. I don't know if it's going to matter in the end, but if you're going to really see the thing. Let's see here. So we got that. Okay. So actually, and I have my notes a little bit backwards. I'm going to actually hit no, I take it back. I am going to flip it. I was going to say I could actually just leave it in place and it would be maybe more of a true hole to cut the next, hole in there, to drill the next hole. But actually, I have things right. I want to flip it because all the next steps of holes need to be running true. And so taking it out and then flipping it like this, it's unlikely that it's going to be running exactly on the same plane or whatever. So you want to try to minimize taking things out of your chuck and then re-chucking it and then performing operations like drill something, take it out, chuck it back up, and then do taps and, or tap your threads and do this and that. You're much better off trying to keep the thing mounted and do all the operations that you need to that matter, that run on the same plane all at once. So I don't know if that made sense. Somebody else can probably explain that a lot better than I just did. All right, so the next step we got, this one you do need to put a bunch of steps. I mean, like you have to do it on the section. No way around it. This one's going to be a totally through hole. And again, I already have a 6mm, but that doesn't have any bearing on anything that we're threading or doing anything like that. The next bunch of steps are steps that actually matter, that have to do with how the nib and all the things fit in there. So we already got a 6mm hole. We can just slam through this sucker with the K. I use a K bit for that. So that one's easy. Next one I believe is an N. These ones need to be pretty accurate, and I wish I'd like to kind of come up with some sort of a system where I can just not have to think about how deep I'm going with these holes. To be honest, what I'd like is to be able to put there's ways that you could mount a digital caliper somehow and know, how deep you're going. What do they call that? It's on the metal lathes where you know exactly how far you're going in. That would be great instead of just kind of randomly Sharpie marking a drill bit. It's not particularly accurate. I'd like a simple, repeatable, I don't have to think about it result. Why is there no mark on this bit? That's what worries me though. Yeah, that is the right bit. Usually I already have marks on it. Must have wiped off. And that's the other thing is, Sharpies, it doesn't stay on there necessarily. Where's my Sharpie? All right, did I miss any questions? How do you know how far to go in with the tenon cutter? Let's see, what were we talking about? Tenon cutter. Like how far I want that thread for the section to be? How long the tenon should be? Is that what we're talking about? That's, we were kind of talking about it before. It's kind of arbitrary. It's up to you. A lot of times, I think a lot of people probably put somewhere around a 1/4 inch on the back side of the section. That seems probably pretty typical. There's debate on how much body thread for the cap you would want. So it's, a lot of this is up to you. I don't know. I mean, they were talking about possibly the strength of the threads somehow having to do with the length. I mean, I guess if you're not engaging that many threads, maybe that's what you're talking about. Like the cap could kind of break it off. But I don't know. I haven't seen that personally with the length that I've done. I don't know. So it's just a matter of things being kind of up to you, really. 0.53. This one, like I said, you got to be fairly accurate, and I can't remember. There's some leeway that you can do. But they all kind of, oh, that's light. I need light here. They all kind of factor into each other. That's not right. What are we talking about here? Oh, maybe it is right. 25. Okay. Maybe that's why I couldn't see the mark, because it's in a totally different place. Nope, I still don't see a mark. Okay. Now, you don't want to be measuring from the tip of the blade, of the drill bit. You want to be measuring from the shoulder right here. I don't know. Can you guys see what I'm doing? I can't see the camera. Yeah. So not the point. You want to be measuring from the shoulder, because that's what's actually going to be cutting and what's going to matter. That's the point that matters. So when you're doing your measurements, and actually it's going to make things a lot easier if I actually change the orientation of the bit so that I can actually get my calipers on that shoulder. Problem is, you got like flutes here and there, and so you got to find a place to. So this, now I can get this thing's definitely right on the shoulder of my bit. So that's just a little, if you don't know about that, that's a kind of an important tip, especially when you need to get measurements pretty accurate. I mean, it's not like if you're off a few thousandths, it's going to ruin everything. But you want to be as accurate as possible in these things, and they do matter with the nib. Because you got the threads are in a certain position on the nib, and this shoulder's a certain position. So like things have to be fairly in the right spot. You've got a little leeway with the threads. You can put a little extra threads in there or whatever, but you need to kind of have things proportionately, you don't want them too far off from each other, let's say. Okay. And what I do is I'll go in, close to my mark. And then I'm going to back off the thing. I don't know if I've really done a section on the live stream. So if this is all redundant stuff and I've already talked about it, then I do apologize. But some of these things I think could be really helpful to kind of know. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the back of my, I don't know if, some of you may not really even know about this little trick. Your calipers are more useful than you think. They don't just measure here. They got this backside. There's other, I don't even know all of them. There's like a bunch of different ways that you can measure. But this thing goes in there, finds the shoulder that I cut, and then I bury it. And then I can look, and I need to be at 0.53. I'm only at 0.516. So I can be fairly accurate. I'm just going to come in here and barely touch it. I'm going to get it to it's on the shoulder now. I'm going to back off just a hair, but I can see my line. So what I want to do is I want to not be able to see my line, and that should pretty much put me right where I want to be, I think. Let's see how I did. And if again, a few thousandths, I'm not that worried about some of this stuff. But if I can be more accurate, why not? Oh, it looks like I went over a little bit. Nope, maybe not. 0.533. That's pretty damn good. Sorry for the language, but it was super exciting. I wanted to emphasize how awesome that was. Pretty awesome. All right, and then we're going to go with an S bit. And then this one is not as important. What ends up happening if you go too deep is your nib can kind of sit a little bit in on your pen. I think that the second, that one that I just did, that is the most important one, I would say. If you're going to try to really nail something down, getting that lined up correctly is probably the most important. And you just don't want to go too deep. If you don't go deep enough, what ends up happening, let's see if I can kind of get this to show up on this camera. Stop wiggling. Okay, so what we're drilling for now is this. Let me get a little pointer. Wish I had like a magnifying lens. We're drilling to sink this kind of, there's like a little bit of a lip. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me get my glasses so I can actually see what's happening on the camera here. All right, so you see this little doohickey? This is what this final step is drilling for. So you want to make sure that, you can kind of cover that up. It's best if, I would say that most people want to kind of get it flush, where that's sitting flush with the section. That little, the end of this little black thing is sitting flush. That's kind of what you're going for. So, if you want, you can just measure, grab your calipers and you can measure that little collar. There's a little indentation. And it's like 0.0965. So that's really what you want to be, going for. Maybe even less than that, 0.0955. It's like 0.1 at the most, is really where you want to go. So we got our bit, it's the S bit for super special. And we're going to come up here and we're going to just, like I said, kind of nibble and we'll see what we did. That one's a tough one. You got to just take a little tiny nibble and then check your work. And like I said, if you go a little too far, whatever, it's not going to be the end of the world. Your nib will just kind of sit a little buried in your pen. So that's only 0.034. So we need to go a little bit further. I'm going to actually get this thing set up on the shoulder. Did I do that? Okay. See how that did. It usually takes me like 1 or 2 tries if I'm really worried about getting this thing perfect. 0.05. Maybe I should have put a mark on the drill bit. There's usually a mark on the drill bit. I think I'm going to do that now. I thought I could just do it without worrying about any of that, but obviously, let's see, so 0.0955. Let's see what that looks like on the drill bit. That's 0.096, close enough. I got to find that shoulder. So somewhere in that vicinity. It makes things easier if you just mark your bit. Then you don't have to line things up and mess around with it. All right, let's see what we did. With the mark, how'd we do? Uh, 0.088. And the problem is you can't like test this out, right? There's no threads, so I can't like try my nib out and see how well it fits. That probably went too far. This, again, this doesn't matter. Somewhere around 0.1 and you're good to go. And you don't typically need to do all this back and forth with the measuring. I'm just kind of showing you guys. Oh man, I still didn't get to... You need it enough. Like, you don't really want that thing sticking out. Like, if anything, you're better off going too deep on this drill hole. I think this is I guess personal preference, but I don't want to be seeing that kind of lip for the nib thing. I don't want to be seeing that. So somewhere between 0.0955 and 0.1, that's ideal. That's like perfect if you can get in there. All right, so 0.1, good enough. Now, we will do some threading here. Let's see. Let me get my... And then this is the one where you need, like, you know, depending on which nib which type of nib you're going to be using, you need to get the specific tap for it. This isn't one of those that it's very specific. So I'm using Yovo nibs. This is for the Yovo, you know, and even the size. Like I use a Yovo. God, what do I use? 6, I guess. 5? No, 6. Yovo number 6. That's going to be a very specific thread, and you have to get the specific tap for that. I don't know if you guys even saw that. I probably didn't have that zoomed out far enough. Sorry about that. Let's see here. What am I doing? Grab my little... Going back to the Neil's Niche stuff. There it is. Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's probably a way. It's not hard on a like a metal lathe. They've got like setups for that because you know that's a much more like you don't need that for doing these pens. I think that's the thing. I would prefer it to just be able to do it repeatedly without even thinking, basically. You know, that's you know that would be neat for me. I would love that personally. But really, it's not like it's so important that you get it perfect for doing these things. Like it doesn't need to be that perfect anyway. And you can just do it, measure it, and it doesn't take that long. It would just be nice to have like a digital readout thing that shows you how far you're going without having to mess with it, personally. All right, so we're just going to add a little bit of WD to that. These ones don't really require that much. Okay. Probably more than enough. All right, now I have I generally don't use I have a nib that's specifically sits on my little toolbox over there and is made for me testing these things out. I think that's not a bad way to go. Have one that's all it does. It's made for testing. Whoa. It seemed like it went way deep. Hold on a minute. Oh no, it's good. Okay. A little bit inset, tiny bit inset. Felt like it just was going forever, but it's good. I was a little over what I normally go, but I think 0.1 around there. Like if you can, like I said, if you can get it somewhere between 0.095 and 0.1, you will have a nice flush. You know, it's not super, your nib's not sitting sunk into your section. But what I don't like, I think this looks terrible, is if you haven't gone far enough. Let's see if I can get this to kind of show. This is what it would look like. Let's like over exaggerate it, where like that black part is like hanging out of your section. That looks terrible, I think. I think that's much worse than burying the nib just a little bit further. You know, like, I mean, I could still go, I don't know what measurement, but even if this thing was like, you know, like a 16th inch more, or possibly even more than that. If I had gone like almost a 16th inch in too far, that still doesn't look that bad, I don't think. But with having that plastic collar thing hanging out of your nib, that looks terrible, I think. You're like, oh, wow, you didn't drill far enough. And there's some people that actually do it on purpose, where they put the nib way deep in their section. So that is kind of like a feature. Now, I don't know of anybody that leaves the little collar thing hanging out. You know, so I think you're all right if you go a little too deep, not far enough, and you're going to be not so happy. That's looking pretty good already. What do you guys think about that? I still can't believe that I got that like pretty much perfect. We'll have to see, but see this line? Now you can adjust these things if I took if I took down a little bit off of this tenon, this would turn. Now it would have to be a very, very tiny amount, or you could maybe try to kind of cut in a little bit further on this edge, but I think that's kind of not smart. You'll want to take off this tenon. And I could adjust it to where it'll if you need to, taking off some of that tenon will let it turn further. Right? Because what's stopping the rotation is this edge. So if you take some of that off, you'll get more turn, like a little bit more rotation. It'll tighten further on. So if everything, you know, and this goes for either, you know, the section in the body or the cap in the body, taking off a little portion of that tenon, that's how you can get things perfectly lined up. All right, so if I needed to get, you know, something lined up perfectly on this pen between the cap and the body, you're going to take off a little bit off of the cap in that case, so that it'll crank a little bit further. And so you got to think about it like, how is this working? If you're adjusting things, you're going to get the cap to turn further on, and you got to really be careful. Take off just a very, very tiny amount to get it. It'll go fairly far around. So it's very easy to take too much off, and then you got to kind of start over and take off a significant amount. And if you don't have many threads there, this is where things get a little hairy. You know, then that kind of exacerbates that. That could be a good argument for not doing it the way that I do it, with a pretty short tenon for that part. But I'm super excited to see this thing come out. So again, let's see here. I'm gonna bring that little thing that I showed everybody at the beginning. So on the next one, we're going to do the cap, and this is going to be a little bit of a little bit different thing. So when I was in Arizona, in Phoenix, Chad made me these little pucks, and they're engraved with my like logo for the pen company, which I haven't like set up the pen company and all this stuff. This is all just kind of pre doing stuff. But eventually what I want is, I was telling him that I want to do these little discs, and what they're for is they'll be embedded in the cap, on the top of the cap. So let me go get a finished, because that's just kind of a blank. Well, here, it'll be like, I'll show you what it'll be like. So on this pen, it'll be embedded into the cap right up there. And I don't know, you know, he just kind of was messing around. Oh, I lost it. He was just messing around and playing with his fiber laser, and just made those because he had them loaded up. I didn't really like request them. But I think it's kind of cool. And so, you know, a lot of the pen makers do this type of a thing. They embed some sort of logo, finial thing in the top, and I think it'd be kind of cool. So we're going to do that on the cap. I just have to think about, make sure that I'm doing it correctly, like at the correct time. It's going to be pretty simple. These, you know, as long as you get things kind of figured out. I think this is about 1/2 inch, or probably slightly under 1/2 inch. So all I have to do is just drill a 1/2 inch hole. But I think the simplest way to do that is using, well, there's a few ways you could do this. You can use a Forstner bit. The problem with Forstner bits is they have that gigantic spur in the center. So I'm not really digging that. That's going to, for a pen, that's going to go way in there. I think you could probably just use a router bit. I don't know. I'm going to try it. So this is a 1/2 inch, I don't know what they call it, but it's like a flat router bit. So I'm going to see if that works. Obviously not on the actual blank itself. The other way is you just come in there with a hollowing tool kind of thing. You know, I can just come in on the end, kind of hollow it out, or, you know, that's a little harder though to get it kind of perfect. But you can do it just by hand using a tool. That's not really like that hard of a thing. I think there's another way. Turner's Warehouse sells a little, what do they call that thing? It's a little tool that you can kind of line up, and it just kind of cuts out the centers of things. Can't think of the name of the tool. Told you, my brain today, guys, not really working. But anyway, so that's that. It's a wrap. So from here, guys, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dumping those parts into the little sonic cleaner thing. I highly recommend picking one of those things up. They're super, I mean, relatively cheap. I think they're like 20 bucks or something like that on Amazon. Let's see here. I'm going to look them up right now real quick. Ultrasonic, I guess, is what technically they're called. Ultrasonic, not just sonic. Yeah, so like here's, and I honestly, any of them, as long as it'll fit your parts, pretty much will do. The one that I use is like 33 bucks. I mean, it's not cheap, but there's a lot of stuff you can do with these things. So I'm just going to drop a link into the chat window here. If anybody's looking for one of those things, it works fine. You can probably find them for even cheaper. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised that there aren't like $20 ones somewhere. There's one, ultrasonic for 20 bucks. I don't know how well it works. The link is to the one that I purchased. Here's another one for 28 that I'm looking on Amazon. So, you know, there are some cheaper ones out there. The one that I use works really well. It was actually another recommendation from someone else. So, you know, let's see, a little 1/2 inch Dremel. Oh yeah, huh. That's interesting. 1/2 inch Dremel. I was thinking probably the smart money is on, well, I don't know for sure, but yeah, like one of these. I'm gonna pull. I don't think this is a 1/2 inch, but is this what you mean? Like one of these guys? That might work. Little grinder guy. I was thinking an end mill for like a mill. That might be a good way to go. Just get an end mill, which is pretty much the same thing as a router bit in a way. Let's see here. So let me scroll up and just see if I missed any. Tim yeah, the tenon cutter is awesome. I mean, it literally, because I hated messing around manually trying to get the tenon. I was just not very good at it. It took forever. And the tenon cutter, you get that, you just line it up, and that's what I'm talking about with like the depth of how far I'm drilling in. I want something that's idiot proof, that I'm like, okay, it's 0.995 or, you know, whatever that thing was. Let's see here. So, oh, too late. What was too late? I'm not sure what Barb talking about. You can measure how much the tailstock moves. Yeah. Well, I know how much it moves, and it has lines on it, but I can't see them. They're like lasered onto the quill. You can't see it. I would like to have a digital thing. I mean, really, you could buy a digital caliper. I've seen people do this, even on like metal lathes. They just use a digital caliper that costs like $10 and just set it up, and you could set it up and do all that stuff, but there's got to be an easier way. Or something that just stops at 0.995 somehow. Oh, some of the Axminster. Nice, I like that. Let's see, Randy was asking, you get all your nibs from Turner? No, I get mine from all over the place. Some of them I get from Turner's. The problem is Turner's doesn't sell, as far as I know. They don't sell any of the silver ones. The chrome, I guess, is what they would be. So I get them... I don't know. I've gotten them at a few different places. I mean, literally, I think it's. I don't know. There's a place where you can kind of get them. There's two places. What is the? Meister Nibs. Meisternibs.com. That is, forget who runs that, but it's a good company. So Meister Nibs is a good one to get them at. And there's a company in Europe. That's what I think it is. Let me see here. Yeah, fountainpennibs.com. And they can do customization, and like they have like every single nib on the planet. All right, so Meister Nibs is in America, and I want to say that it's run by one of the nib meisters that I met at the pen show. I can't think of his name. But anyway, Meister Nibs is good. That's a good place to get them. Turner's Warehouse has them. It's just they only have certain ones where there's literally so many variations of nibs and colors, and you can get them with like little floral patterns. You can get engraving done before you even buy the nibs if you wanted. There's all kinds of a whole host of things going on. My glasses are falling out. That you can get done at other places where you're not going to get that stuff at Turner's Warehouse. That's so... But I mean, if you're already buying the stuff and all you want is some gold nibs in medium, you know, or whatever they have, then Turner's, there's no difference in the nibs. All these companies, they're the same nibs. They're Yovos, right? Turner's sells Yovos. They just, the only thing is they only have certain ones. And the problem that I have with the ones at Turner's is they have the floral pattern thing or whatever on them. They have engraving on them, but I want to put my logo on them, so I don't want to get those. I want to get the ones that are plain, like... Well, let me just show you. And I bought this one from. Is it this one? Yeah. I don't know if they have this specific. This I bought like 10 years ago, or I don't know, a long time ago. This specific nib. Hopefully you can see. It's got my initials engraved. I can get somewhere where it wants to pick up by this side. That's not working at all. goodness. Hold on, let me try zooming in and then putting it like down here. So I got my initials done. It's like black. Good Lord. Okay, come on. These cameras. This is a good camera too. That's what makes me really annoyed. There we go. Sorta. So anyway, there's different ones. And so what I typically want, I don't necessarily want this black and all that stuff, but I thought it was cool back in the day to just to just try it out. Do I have any that are? I need to reorder nibs anyway. I haven't bought them forever. Like I basically at this point just take them out of one pen that I've already made and put them in another. It's kind of how things are working right now. I'm trying to find a. I guess I've given away or sold or given away all the ones. Basically though, they're either gold or they're just. Oh, I just showed you that one. Or they're just chrome. Shoot. I don't know what happened. Maybe there's one in this pen. There we go. Well, nope, that's my Turner's Warehouse one. Am I in this one? All right, guys. I have no clue where all my nibs are. I'm looking for nibs, and I can't even find one. Well, I'll show you this one. This one's. You guys probably saw the one that I put in the Camo pen. See how it's got like. Come on. See how it's got like patterns? Now I could engrave the top part there, but it's got this floral thing, and I don't want any engraving. You can get nibs that have zero engraving. They're just gold. There's no floral things going on, lines and all that stuff. So that's what I want. And so that's why I have to go to a different place. But like I said, it's the same exact nib. It's just, did they put patterns on it? Or is it plain? Is it whatever? And you can have them actually engrave whatever you want on the nibs before you buy them. And the one from like Europe, like they just have like a ton of different options. So anyway, let's see. Fountain pen. Yeah, I got both of those. How much water? I don't use any simple green. I just use water. I don't do any of that stuff. Because you don't really need cleaner typically, necessarily. The sonic part of that is it's literally making little explosions that gets the junk out of your pen. So you really don't even need a solution necessarily. You could though, if you want. I don't do that though. Let's see here. Yeah, you can totally clean your glasses, anything. Just dump them in there and it'll sonic clean everything up. So, who's doing my logo on it? Well, I made the logo. And if I purchase, I've had Chad do a couple, just like literally a couple, just to see how, when I was working with my logo, trying to make one. Chad did a couple because he's got a little fiber laser thing. They don't do, I'm pretty sure that Turner's Warehouse doesn't do any engraving or anything like that. So I would just have the company that I was talking about, fountainpennibs.com. Meister Nibs might do it too. Yeah, they do custom engraving too. So you can just have them, like if you're going to go and buy a bunch of nibs, go to meisternibs.com or you can go to FP Nibs. Now that stuff is coming from Europe, so that's why I'm saying there's a company in America, Meister Nibs, and they're great. They do a great job with everything, but they may be a little bit lower on like inventories, is what I've found on certain things. Whereas FP Nibs, and it doesn't take like 3 years to get your stuff. It's just it is going to take a little bit longer coming from Europe. But they both can do engraving. But fpnibs.com, generally, they have a lot more inventory and options and things like that. So that's what I would do, is I would just have one of those two. Where did I close the? Whoa. I think I closed YouTube. That's weird. Oh no, there it is. Okay. Somehow the YouTube window like got hidden. So anyway, I would just have them engrave it when I get them. Well, yeah. So no, not gold. I'm not buying like actual gold. I'm sorry, the plated stuff. Steel nibs is what I buy. Gold nibs cost a fortune. They're like $100 each. Threading on the nibs can vary so much. The threading on the nibs. It depends on what brand, I guess, maybe, but I've never seen any variation on the threading with Yovo nibs, at least. I've never heard of that personally. What might be happening is your taps. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of that personally. Having like a variation on the threads. So I'm not sure. There really shouldn't be. If you've got variations on the threads on the nibs that you're buying, you should return them, is what I would say. So double check that. Like I said, I've never heard of that. There was a time when some of the Yovo, the housings, so if you actually take apart the entire nib, the housing is the thing that holds all the stuff. No, it wasn't the housing. It was the... No, it was the housings. They would crack and leak. There was something wrong with their plastics. They changed something, or I don't know, and there was a problem with that. But the threading should be fine. Oh yeah, I mean, if you're really into fountain pens, then the gold nibs are better. But like one gold nib, let's look at Meister nibs really quickly. If you want a number 6 14 karat nib is $120 for one nib. So sounds good. I can't imagine, personally, I don't think any pen is going to write that much better for $100 just for the nib part. Personally, that's just my own thing. But if you're really into it, definitely everybody's like, oh, gold nibs write the best. So anyway, I can't afford that kind of thing though, personally. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. So again, next week we'll do the cap, and then we'll start turning these things. I don't know. I might be able to get them like turned, maybe not fully polished and all that kind of stuff, like all three parts, but it should be pretty cool. I'm excited to see what the camo looks like once we turn it down also. And I'm definitely going to be going for a matte finish on this one. I think that I'll show you guys the comparisons. I really think matte is the way to go for these. Oh, we're zoomed way in. So I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I'm not crazy, but matte is definitely... I mean, the gloss looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but for camo, I'm trying to get on the camera here. I definitely think the matte is the bee's knees for that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks for joining the fun today. Again, these camo blanks are in stock and ready to rock. I will actually drop a quick link to the camo blanks. They're in my store for anybody that wants those guys. Of course, we got the golden starlight glitters in the house now too as well. And I got links in the description to the collet chuck and stuff, and also links to like all the bespoke pen turning stuff at Turner's Warehouse in the description. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you guys on next week.